thrilled to be a sponsor of this year's Global INC Online Conference and hope you enjoy this brief overview of our family company.
Hello to you all, and welcome to the Pistachios Working Group. I would also like to say a special welcome to INC Chairman, Mike Waring, and the Executive Committee who are all online with us. This session nearly marks the close of the online conference, and I hope you have all enjoyed this experience as much as I have. Likewise, I wanted to say thank you to our sponsor for this working group, Seton Pistachio of Terra Bella, USA, for their continued support of the INC and the industry. Also, joining us from Seton Pistachio of Terra Bella is our chair for today's group, Ms. Mia Cohen, Chief Operating Officer. So thank you, Mia, for taking the time for being with us this morning. Led by a panel of Pistachio experts, this session will include a 60-minute discussion on the state of the pistachio sector, supply and demand, and next crop forecasts, plus a 20-minute live Q&A at the end of the discussion. If you are watching through the online virtual platform and have a question for your panel, click the Q&A button at the bottom left-hand side of your screen. The chair will raise as many as possible in the allocated time. And now, let me hand over to Mia Cohen. Thank you again, Mia, and take it away.
Thank you, Goretti, and everybody at the INC. I am honored to be chairing the Pistachio Working Group. Thank you to everyone that is tuning in. I am excited about the topics that our panel will be discussing with you today. Like you, I wish we could be together in person, but this should be exciting and fun. This virtual format seems to be working very well for the INC and for our global community, and I thank them for putting on such an exceptional program for us all. Hopefully, we will be together in person next year. Okay, so let's get started. Since we last got together as a pistachio panel, we have faced many challenges as well as many opportunities, not unlike most of the nut industry. We have experienced more people staying home, which translated into more snacking and cooking at home, which led to an increase in consumption. We have also faced some challenges related to COVID, shipping disruptions, and tariffs. All in all, I am very optimistic about the future for pistachios. We have an in-demand product that boasts a powerful nutritional message and is loved the world over. As Goretti mentioned, my name is Mia Cohen, and I am with Seton Pistachio of Terra Bella, located in California. I'm thrilled to have with us today a great group of pistachio industry professionals from around the world. We have Mr. Mike Homan, who serves as Executive Vice President and CFO of Wonderful Pistachios and Almonds, representing the USA. From Iran, we have Mr. Behrooz Agha, who is a member of the Board of Trustees of the Iran Pistachio Association. From Turkey, we have Mr. Serkan Gurgulu, who serves as Nuts Trade Director of Tiryaki Agro Gida. Finally, we have Mr. Carlos Suárez Morales, who is CEO of NUEVOS CULTIVOS Agrarios, representing Spain. This is a program that we will be following during our session. First, I'm going to kick things off by sharing with you some graphs that showcase the world pistachio production. Then I will present the INC official statistics table for pistachios, in which each panelist will give you their take on their respective market, discussing both supply and demand. Then we are going to hear from Mike, who's going to talk about COVID impacts, challenges, and opportunities. Following Mike, we are going to hear from the panel regarding current geopolitical and regulatory challenges and opportunities. The panel will then share their future production outlook, after which we will move on to demand trends. I will conclude with key takeaways and then we will take questions from the audience. So please submit those throughout the discussion, as Goretti mentioned. And with that, I will begin with the first slide, an overview of the world pistachio production. So this slide does a nice job at illustrating the growth of the global pistachio industry over the last 10 years. Each country is represented. The bottom blue portion represents the United States, the orange is Iran, and the gray is Turkey. The ones above are a bit harder to see, but you can see clearly here that the growth over the last 10 years has been 53%, which is based on a 2-year average. The bar to the far right is the estimate for the upcoming crop, incorporating all countries, which you can see is quite a bit lower than this year, about 30% lower, but slightly greater than the prior year. Each of the panelists will share their estimate and rationale for the new crop during the discussion. This next slide shows the 2-year moving average production of the 3 main producers of pistachios, the United States, Iran, and Turkey, for the last 12 years. As you can see, it illustrates the systemic growth of the US market, which Mike will explain, Turkey's recent growth in production, which Serkan will take us through, and we will hear from Behrooz more about Iran. This is the usual INC statistics slide that is shown each year in metric tons. We will be reviewing some of these details during our panel discussion, but noteworthy to mention now is that total supply for next year, which is calculated as the crop plus the beginning stock, is estimated to be down about 150,000 metric tons, which is a decrease of about 13%. Total world consumption, which is calculated as the total supply minus the projected ending stock of that same year, is expected to be up about 60,000 metric tons, which is an increase of about 7%. Of course, this world consumption estimate is just that, an estimate, and also maybe a bit too early to predict accurately. Last year at this time, the INC Pistachio webinar consumption for this year was estimated at about 200,000 metric tons more. But as you will see, this volume is being held back by the US and Turkey to stabilize supply for next year. I also wanted to mention that while these numbers are suitable for comparison purposes, I would like to point out that total world supply doesn't take into account inventory adjustments, which can decrease at least the USA figure by generally 15 to 20% in any given year. These adjustments account for shrinkage of open-in shell and conversions of kernel shipments to closed shell and shelling stock equivalents. So at this point, each of the panelists will discuss their respective countries' numbers from this table. Mike, would you please start us off by discussing the US numbers, touching upon shipments thus far and the rationale for the projected carryover?
Certainly, Mia. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everybody who's joining our call. As many of you know, California is a growing pistachio industry. There are trees in the ground, and as these trees mature, we get more supply. And so in this particular 2-year period, crop year 20 was an on year, which means the trees were the most productive. And then crop year 2021 is coming to an off year where the trees rest a little bit. However, in the growing period of crop year 21, we've had favorable weather conditions. So there was a good winter chill. The period between November and February was quite good. The bloom period was also quite good. So we believe that crop year 2021 is going to be a relatively large off year. However, we are keeping an eye on the ongoing water issues in California. We believe there will be sufficient water for this year. However, it's becoming increasingly scarce, and it's something that we're continuing to monitor. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Behrooz. Behrooz, let's move on to Iran. We understand that there may be a possible underestimation of the 2020 Iranian crop production figure. Can you please discuss this and as well address the numbers in this table?
Sure. The IPA believes that it may have underestimated the 2020 crop by about 10 to this current crop. This current crop, we are hoping that it should be around 145,000 because we have had the severe frost and heat damage. Iran is located in an area that is a kind of desert climate. So you have variation in the temperature. And normally in the nights, it gets very cold. During the days, it gets very hot. So we have frost damage and heat damage as well. This year, we have had both. It's not a year goes by that we don't have any damage at all, but it all depends on the year. Some years it's, more, some years it's less. This year, I would say it's one of the years that we've had both heat and frost damage. So we estimate our crop to be at about 145,000. And we are going towards the longer varieties. So as I would tell you later on about the percentage of these varieties. And so we think with the carryover we estimate the carryover to be 5,000. So altogether, you can expect 150,000 metric tons of pistachios from Iran. Thank you, Mia.
Great. Thank you so much, Behrooz. Let's move on to Turkey. Serkan, production in Turkey has been increasing quite rapidly recently. Why is this, and is there enough processing capacity and storage to handle the increased volume? And also, if you'd like to please touch upon the numbers in this table.
Thank you, Mia. Welcome, everyone, and I hope that everybody is keeping healthy. Actually, in Turkey, there have been a lot of plantations, especially in the last 10 years, and that's why Turkey, because of the high profitability of the pistachio farming and ease the stock and liquidate, people continue to plant more pistachios. And in addition to this, productivity of the current farms has been improved a lot with the irrigation systems and modern farming practices. We had a record crop in 2020, as we all know, and according to our calculations, we had around 490,000 bearing acres, and we have around 1,350 pounds per acre for the last crop. And this led to approximate crop around 300,000 tons of pistachios in last year. For the new crop, we expect a strong off year, actually. Actually, the weather conditions were okay, not bad, and average rainfall. But chilling hours were lower than average. And also the main thing is the trees were really tired because of last year's record crop. So we estimate around 120,000 tons of in-shell for the new crop. This is a subjective estimate with our conversations with many growers in the regions which we have in big portion of the production. And they comment that trees have fruits around 1/3 of last year. So this is the current estimation that we can do. In the beginning of June, we will also make our objective estimate by visiting selected areas representing 95% of planted regions to make our calculations, like we did in previous years, to see more rational numbers on the field. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Serkan. Let's move on to Spain. Carlos, many people may be unfamiliar with pistachios from Spain. Can you please give us an overview of the history of producing pistachios in Spain? And please talk about the numbers that we see here on the table.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to raise voice about the Spanish pistachio sector in such an important panel of experts. It's for me a pleasure to be here. As you said, Spain is a country that is not been known history for producing pistachios. However, already centuries ago, during the Arabs and the Roman Empire, pistachio was cultivated in Spain. It was lost. This crop was lost during the Christian stay until nowadays, and the agricultural research started again in the 80s. However, it didn't start to be planted for real, seriously, until the last decade of years. Nowadays, pistachios that have been planted in Spain are barely starting to bear, actually. We are increasing our surface in around 10,000 hectares per year, which is quite an increase every year. However, I have to say that there is still a lot of misknowledge about the crop. So mainly half of that hectares will be producing one day. Nevertheless, still the crop is increasing every year. We've been increasing about 1,000 tons every 2 years until now. But nowadays, the pistachio, the surfaces that were being planted 5 to 6 years ago, are starting to produce exponentially. So I think I can foresee that we'll be increasing our capacity around 1,000 tons every year. Nowadays, it's a drop in the ocean. I mean, we are producing this year, which is a known year, around 3,000 tons estimation. Last year, we were less than 2,000. And there is no carryover as the production is very small, and we export all the pistachio to Europe. For those who don't know, in Spain, we cultivate several kinds of varieties. We mainly cultivate in areas with enough chilling hours the American varieties, such as Kerman, Golden, Los Hills. But we also have potential of production for Mediterranean varieties, like the Turkish ones or the Italian or Tunisian ones that are mainly used in the industry sector. I talk about Larnaca, Mateur, and all that kind of varieties. And also we have weather conditions to cultivate Cyrora, the Australian variety. This is a good thing, but also a bad thing, because as it is quite a new crop in Spain, we don't have a consensus. We still need to consensuate and cultivate not that wide range of varieties, but just a couple of varieties for snack purposes of the market, and another 1 or 2 varieties for the industry market. Another thing that I have to say about the Spanish pistachio sector is that, on the contrary, as other countries, Spain is quite oriented to the production of organic pistachio. So we can say nowadays that half of the production is organic, half of the production is conventional. This is due to one clear trend, is that the fact that Spain is located within the European Union, and the European Union demands organic. Spain is ready to provide it, and actually we know how to do it quite well. This is also something that is helped by the fact that in Spain we don't have a lot of water. We do quite an integrated agriculture in the landscape. We don't increase the number of trees per hectare a lot. We actually keep it quite low, below 200, 240 trees per hectare. We don't irrigate a lot or even nothing. It's just rain-fed, which helps diseases not to proliferate. So it helps the organic kind of management of the farms to be promoted quite well. So this is more or less the keys of the sector right now, increasing, but still small. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlos. And thank you to all the panelists for discussing this table. So now moving on with our agenda, I'd like to move on to the next item, which is COVID impacts, challenges, and opportunities with Mike. Mike, you recently chaired a very informative INC webinar about COVID impacts. Can you please address some of those points from a Pistachio perspective?
Happy to, Mia. So first of all, I want to commend everybody for their efforts during this pandemic. The industry did a great job of taking care of the workforce and continuing to produce healthy product during this period. So I just want to thank everybody in the industry for all of their efforts on that. And that brings me to my first challenge, which is, as we all know, during the early parts of the pandemic, there was a big emphasis on worker safety and all of the challenges that came with that. So social distancing, partitions, and so forth. So that certainly had an impact, and we're continuing to see some of those higher costs and those additional steps still in the industry. However, as I said, the industry is able to produce the product. And then more recently, we've seen the challenges of the secondary effect from COVID with regards to shipping and logistics. So everybody involved in supply chain knows that there are challenges with logistics, and happy to say the industry is working through that and overcoming that. So those were the main challenges. With regards to the opportunities, there was a silver lining in the sense that people shifted their habits to more at-home eating and more at-home snacking. So that benefited the pistachio industry. Pistachios are an excellent snack that people were craving. And some of the intrinsic health benefits of the pistachio consumers were craving. And this has led to long-term, or we believe long-term changes. The complete plant-based protein and the convenient healthy snack, that has something that is increased this year and will continue. And we believe that the COVID habits that have led to, I'd say in the neighborhood of a 10% increase here long-term in snacking, we see that continuing. The other element is the industry's emphasis on the kernel or the no shell, happened during this time, and that's grown dramatically during this period as the consumers are continuing to look for convenient and healthy snacks. And we're looking forward to the recovery and things getting back to normal for all of us. And we think the pistachio industry is in great shape to capitalize on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. That was good to review. So now looking ahead, I'd like to ask each panelist to briefly discuss some current geopolitical and regulatory challenges, opportunities. Let's begin with Behrooz. Behrooz, can you please speak with us about Iran's current geopolitical and regulatory challenges, opportunities from your perspective?
Sure. Thank you, Mia. I like to point to one that we are optimistic for an ease on international banking transactions, inshallah, in this year and next. And also about the pesticide residue, we suggest that the whole pistachio industry should work with the help of codex to set logical limits based on scientific methods. This way we can fight the trade barriers imposed by some countries. Now here I'd like to add that, because this year we exported a lot of pistachios to China and India, to the Far East and Indian subcontinent. And this is, again, because of competitive prices and, we believe that China has the potential of eating a lot more pistachio as their economic situation is getting better and better. And also India, we think India, it's my personal belief. I cannot go on record and say that it's my personal belief that it's nothing for Indian people to eat more than 100,000 tons of pistachio because they're such a big nation and their economic situation is also very good. So this is what I think about, this current and geopolitical regulatory challenges and opportunities. Thank you, Mia.
Thank you, Behrooz. We'll move on to Sir Khan. Can you please address this topic of geopolitical and regulatory challenges and opportunities?
Yes, Mia, thank you. Actually, as Turkey, we don't have any big challenges for regulatory or geopolitically. Actually, we could have some opportunities more, especially for the geopolitical position of Turkey. For EU markets, with the custom union regulations, helps Turkey to be, closer to Europe and European demands. Also, Turkey is also acting as a transit country between Iran and EU and also to Middle East a lot. And also it helps to promote our own crop into these regions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Khan. And we'll continue with Carlos. Does Spain have any concerns or thoughts on this topic?
Yes, Mia, thank you. Well, we have to say that Spain is located within the European Union, which is one of the biggest consumers of pistachio in the world. My colleagues from the States, California, Iran, or Turkey, they know very well that one of the main destinations of their exports is the European Union. and they know very well as well the concerns and the topics that we have here about pesticides and aflatoxins and all the control by the sanitation and agricultural authorities. As we are within the European Union, we already know how to produce with that constraints. Our farmers and our factories are used to that, and all the pistachio that we produce, we are obliged to do it that way. That's one of the advantages that being for Spain, or the opportunities for the future for Spain, because we are here. On the contrary, we have low production. We are, as I said, the growing of our production is increasing every year, and that's really an opportunity. On the other hand, we have to say that COVID had an impact, of course. Consumption was slowed down, and we noticed it overall for the organic product, which is more expensive. But still, we noticed an increase in conventional demand because, as I said before, we are located within the European Union. We know the logistic matters and challenges that our colleagues from US or other parts had to face, as Mike just said. This helped us for some consumers, some clients, to look into the conventional pistachio from Spain that is cultivated here, even though it is a bit more expensive as in other producing countries, because we have we are less efficient in the production as the volumes are small. But still, they were ready to pay for that pistachio as they couldn't bring it on time from other places due to the logistic challenges. So being located in the European Union geopolitically is really strategic for us, as we have access to the whole market without tariffs, without borders to cross. And our government is also helping the situation for that, because the regulation helps for the pistachio production and the exports. Some challenges that we have to face, on the contrary, is the fact that Spain has the land is really split off. We don't have large surfaces of land to exploit, which increases the cost and the price of the pistachio. We have also water scarcity in a lot of areas, although we know very well how to manage our water resources, as we have been doing in other crops as olive or vineyard in the past, by dripping systems and so on. And we have also opportunities if we are ready to convert irrigation areas that are cultivating nowadays crops like cereals that are not worth economically to be cultivated anymore. In that sense, the government should help a little bit more to push it and to push for the change of crop and produce more pistachio. This is mainly the things that I have to say about our strategy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carlos. And now, finally, I'd like to turn it over to Mike. I know there are a few things on the minds of U.S. pistachio processors, such as the ongoing Chinese tariffs and tariffs with other importing countries, which continue to put U.S. pistachios perhaps at a price disadvantage. Can you please speak to this?
Sure. Yeah, as you alluded to, Mia, the biggest challenge for the California pistachio industry is the ongoing tariffs into the China market. Bruce alluded to the size of the Chinese market. That is true. It's a very large, important market, and the trade barriers put the U.S. product at a disadvantage. This year, crop year 20 was still a reasonably successful year into China. However, it would have been even larger had we not had the trade, the tariffs and the trade impediments. So we're hopeful that the demand is there, and we're hopeful that something will get resolved. The Chinese, they crave pistachios. They're a great consumer, and we want to be able to as cost effectively deliver to that market as possible. So we're hopeful that things will change. However, we need to let the governments work it out, and we'll see where it goes. Thank you.
Great. Thanks to all of you for giving us that summary for each of your markets. And now moving on with the agenda, Behrooz will begin with the future production outlook for Iran. Behrooz, Can you please explain what this map of the pistachio plantations in Iran shows us?
Sure. It shows us that in Iran, we have 31 states. Out of the 31 states, 27 of them are under pistachio cultivation, as you see. We estimate that every year about 10,000 hectares of our pistachio farms are going out of production because of shortage of water. But as you see, all these new areas are coming up with new pistachio farms. And altogether, we believe that we may have 340,000 hectares of bearing pistachio farms. But see, the problem in Iran is that it varies. What we take out of this farm, it varies from 100 kilos per hectare to 4 tons per hectare. It's not like say in California, where they produce between 3 to 3.5 tons per hectare. In Iran, there are some trees that are 40 years old, but they're very small, but they're still called pistachio trees, and they call them pistachio farms. So if you add these numbers up, you come to a big number. But in actual, the number that are produced in good farms is much lower than that. Also, Iranian pistachio in all these new areas is mostly of the long variety of Akbari and Ahmad Aghai. So you can see in the near future, this is going to dominate the production of Iranian pistachio, these two varieties. Also, I think with geographical diversity comes reducing production fluctuations. Iran is going to have about 200,000 metric tons on average, I would say, for the next few years, 4 or 5 years. And then the rest of it depends on the severity of the frost or the heat damage or the wind or other damages that we may have. I would like to point something out that even we've got this figure very recently from the IPA. This next year's crop, we believe that 36% is AA or Ahmad Aghai, 32% is round, 17% is jumbo, and 15% is Akbari. Now, Akbari, again, the small percentage for Akbari is because the frost damages Akbari more than the other pistachios. This is the only setback for Akbari. Otherwise, the rest of the features is very good. But we feel like in the future, it's going to be mostly AA and Akbari and less of round and jumbo. Thank you, Mia.
Thank you, Biruz. That was very insightful and good to review. We appreciate it. So now moving on, Mike, can you please speak about the future production outlook for the US, such as non-bearing acres, water considerations, production improvements, and sustainability?
Certainly. As I mentioned earlier, the California industry has new plantings in the ground and new plantings going in every year. It's in the neighborhood of 5 to 7% a year. And those new plantings are coming online, and we'll see that in the production numbers in crop year 2021. With regards to the water situation, I think most people on the call know that there is SGMA, there is groundwater regulation that is beginning to be implemented, and that is certainly going to reduce the water supply. And that's something that the pistachio industry and the other industry are going to need to deal with. We're going to have to see how that plays out. However, we anticipate that the industry is going to continue on this growth, and as we've seen, the demand has been strong, and so at least in the near term here, we are confident that the demand will meet the supply, and we look forward to continued growth in the industry. So, thank you.
Great, thanks, Mike. Yeah, we've seen pistachio quality improve in recent years, which is primarily due to farmers harvesting early and shaking twice, undergoing winter sanitation and utilizing mating disruption. And so really, I think the US crop experienced one of its best quality crops this past year with low insect damage. So we have been doing a much better job, and I think we will continue to do so. And also regarding sustainable farming, it's allowed us to do more with less. More and more pistachio farmers are using agronomy to achieve better water penetration into the root zone faster, using less nitrogen. So we're becoming better stewards of the soil with increased use of cover crops and compost. And this is leading to reduced water needs, which Mike, you touched upon, which is very important to everybody in California, and also allowing us to reduce pesticide and herbicide need. So caring for the land just makes good farming sense. So I wanted to point that out. Okay, well, now let's move on with still future production outlook, Serkan. We hear that half of the planted acreage in Turkey is not yet bearing. Can you please address the future production outlook for Turkey, specifically bearing and non-bearing acres, new plantings, growing regions, and also perhaps yield per acre?
Yes, of course, certainly. We have mainly production growing is going on in southeast of Turkey, mainly in Gaziantep, Şanlıurfa, Siirt, Adıyaman, and Maraş areas. And this is representing 96% of the total productions. And the new plantations are being made with the irrigation systems, which is really important, and also with modern farming practices. So they will have much more yield per acre than average yield of total production. As I informed in the beginning, for the current crop and for the new crop, let's say, we will have a strong off crop, but if you look at the numbers, it shows the potential of Turkish pistachios for future. For the new year, we expect 540,000 bearing acres and 500 pounds per acre yields estimated, which is very low because of, I mentioned about the reasons, tiring of the trees and low chilling hours, etc., and strong off crop. But still 380,000 acres non-bearing, including new plantations. So this shows the potential if Turkey and Turkish growers continue to focus on increasing the yield of the trees with these new irrigation systems and modern practices. So Turkey shows a great potential for future and a sustainable crop. And if you look at the carryover, the problem actually is looking for Turkey about the demand for exports from now on. There is a difference also between varieties and Turkish and Iranian and US pistachios. If you look at the numbers of the bearing acres and non-bearing acres, people can think that why Turkey is fluctuating that much with USA and Iran maybe. But the main thing is the variety difference, and the second thing is the irrigation system availabilities in Turkey and USA, and also the new plantations are still a lower portion of the total production. This is the main reasons of this big difference with the on and off crops. So actually, for the future, we are very positive for Turkish pistachios with the increasing supply, with the additional quantities of USA. We believe that the market will go more into the ingredient markets, which will help Turkey to increase its exports for future. And this will enable Turkey to not consume only domestic, but also start to export more and more every year to finalize their crop. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Serkan. And now lastly, Carlos, can you please share with us your view regarding future production for Spain?
Yes, thank you, Mia. As I said at the beginning of my presentation, Spain is planting now around 10,000 hectares of pistachio every year. But still, these yards are quite young and still didn't start bearing yet. Nowadays, for you to have an idea, around 50,000 hectares of pistachio are planted in Spain and increasing, as I said, around 10,000 hectares a year. But only 3,000 tons produced, as it is our forecast for this year. This means that almost all the planted surface, is not producing yet. But what we see is that this rhythm of plantation that we started already 6 to 7 years ago is started to bear now. So our growth is exponential. I foresee that Spain will be producing around 20,000 tons in 10 to 15 years. Another issue that influences this is the fact of the water availability. We have a lot of rain-fed orchards that don't receive any water drop apart from the rain. Yields in these orchards are quite low, around 500 to 600 kilograms per hectare, which is more or less the same in pounds per acre. What I say to these farmers when they ask me, what do? I continue planting or not? Because these yields are not very good in comparison to what we have in other countries, as the US or Iran. What I say is that you have to enjoy that the organic demand in Europe is quite high. Convert into organic. I mean, you can produce your 500 kilograms per hectare with almost no input of pesticides, not disease control, just the basic ones. There is not high humidity in your orchards. You will not have a lot of moisture, a lot of fungi or bacteria. Just with organic usual treatment of your orchards, you can obtain 2 to 3 euro more the kilogram, which is actually quite good for a low production of 500 kilograms per hectare. And to the farmers that have water in their lands, which are also a lot, about maybe around 30 to 40% of our surface. What I say is that, okay, if you have at least 1,500 cubic meter per hectare, you should be producing the same thing in kilograms per hectare, around your 1,500 kilograms per hectare or 2,000 kilograms per hectare. A lot of farmers are doing that, the most professional ones. The ones that started planting in a familiar way, which were not professionals of farming, they are not obtaining good yields. And this was the tendency during the first years. Nowadays, the production of pistachio in Spain is getting professionalized, and we see more and more investment groups coming to our country to plant big orchards of pistachio. The average size of the orchards 15 years ago were 3 to 4 hectares. The orchard, which is nothing. This is nothing. We cannot be efficient with that. But I remember 3 months ago, a Portuguese investment group came to Spain. They bought a vineyard of 1,000 hectares. They are ripping out the vineyards, the vine, and they are planting pistachio. So this is the scene now in Spain. We are in transition. There is a lot of optimism in our country now. Banks and investors and professionals of other crops in agriculture are putting their eye on pistachio, something that was maybe at the beginning neglected or even not taken into consideration. It's been now looked seriously as one of the most worth crops in Spain. It's not something exceptional to see now orchards of 100, 300, or even that one of 1,000 hectares that are being bought by investors and planted by professionals with water and all the new techniques that are used in agriculture. So I foresee an increase of the average yields in orchards in Spain. These plantations will not produce less than 2,000 kilograms per hectare, and some of them, the ones that have water, at least 6,000 cubic meters per hectare, plus the rain, which is 400 to 500 millimeters average a year here in Spain, will be maybe getting close to productions that are normal in the US or even Australia and other countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. It was really interesting to take us through. I appreciate it, and learning more about the organic market in Spain. And now with that, I'd like to move on to demand trends. We've talked about supply, so let's start with Iran. Behrooz, can you please explain these two graphs that we have for you?
Sure. On the first graph, we are showing the 7-month Iran and US pistachio export shipments. As you see, it's the highest total of the two countries together. So this shows that the demand in the world has increased. Now, some of it may be due to COVID, people staying more at home, eating more pistachios instead of going to restaurants and doing other, doing other stuff. Can I have the next graph as well?
Sure.
On the next graph, it shows the kernel shipment from Iran and US. And again, in this graph, it's almost, we are at the top of our record years. So this, we are hoping that this trend should continue, but the whole world is producing so much more pistachios that we have to do things about the demand in other countries. Because as you see, US is still growing. California pistachio farms are growing as we are speaking. Spain, Carlos was just telling us about, how Spain is going to grow. We have a lot of other countries like Syria, like Greece, like Italy, Australia, China, Argentina. Not last but not least, even Turkey is growing in such big numbers that one of these years we think they're going to hit their mark. So, all these pistachios coming out, Iranian pistachios, we are looking into how we can expand the Iranian pistachio market. And the main things that we can maneuver on that are unique to Iranian pistachio is pistachio oil, our green kernel, and our kernel. These three things that in Iran, we are working to export these three all together. Now, one thing I like to make a final point. I believe that consistent quality and stable prices are key to market growth. And this is what the California pistachio has been doing so exceptionally in these past years. Thank you so much, Mia.
Thank you so much, Behrooz. And now, continuing on, Mike, we'll start with you. Demand trends. So each of our markets are facing similar global demand trends, such as an increase in healthy snacking and a shift towards a more plant-based protein diet, as well as an increased desire for kernels. These trends tend to be benefiting pistachios around the globe. Can you please speak to some of these demand trends, Mike?
Yes, I'm happy to. The first thing is to build on what Behrooz mentioned is, stable supply, stable pricing is key to driving demand over the long term. And that's one of the things we alluded to in the beginning part of this presentation is there's a relatively large carryover from 20 to 21, and that carryover is going to help stabilize supply. And with stable supply, there will be increasing demand. So that is a key to the underlying demand growth. Another element to build on also what Behrooz said is with regards to quality. Consistent quality is very important to reach new consumers and then also to have existing consumers continue to come back. If we then shift towards the specific elements around snacking is, as you mentioned, consumers are looking for, in general, healthy snacks. And then they're also specifically looking for plant-based protein. And those two elements pistachios have, and we as an industry need to continue to push that message. We on this call all know that pistachios are healthy. They're high in plant-based protein. However, the general consumer does not know that. And we need to work hard to get that message out to drive demand. And then another element is availability of the product. We know is very important to driving demand. So you start off with consistent supply, and then you need to get that supply out to as many points of distribution as possible. And that's where the kernels or the no-shell come as well. That's a very convenient snack that can get into more places and to drive snacking. And we believe this is a winning message. It's very healthy. Consumers are looking for it, and we just need to get that message out. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, pistachios are not only a good source of protein and a plant-based protein, but they are also a complete protein, which means that they contain all 9 essential amino acids, which our bodies don't naturally produce and we need from food. So the overall momentum around plant-based protein, I agree with you, Mike, is benefiting not just pistachios, but all nut products. So now moving on, Serkan, would you like to also address demand trends?
Yes, Mia, I want to mention a little bit. Actually, for the pistachios, the main difference if we compare with other nuts are still being consumed 90-95% as snack. This is the main thing I can differ from other 3 nuts. I think with increasing supply and more competitive pricing and more consistent prices and also the availability of the product, we will see more demand coming for ingredient markets as well, like we have other nuts. This might be starting with bakery, sweet and chocolate industries, and also more demand for ice cream industries. And we might also see seeing these industries start using more pistachios. One step further, we might see also demand for, the production of plant-based proteins and oils. But for now, the prices are still a little bit high for such markets. Protein powders and this kind of 3-nut protein powders and this kind of markets, if you compare with other 3 nuts. And of course, as you also mentioned, during COVID, we have more healthy eating habits, which supports nuts market and pistachios. And snack markets, including kernel snack markets, are getting bigger and bigger. And we see vegan and vegetarian consumers creating more opportunities for plant-based protein. And also the last but not least, the organic demand, especially from Europe, is coming more and more. And Turkey is gonna act, I think, the biggest role for this demand in future with the availability of the product and consistent production started from last year and for future. Thank you, Mia.
Thank you, Serkan. And lastly, Carlos, would you like to add anything else regarding demand trends?
Yes, thank you, Mia. Of course, the protein is a key player. I mean, when talking in favor of pistachios, as you all my colleagues you just said, I just would like to add. Serkan said that 90% of the pistachio is destined for snacking. I could say about the Spanish pistachio would be a bit less. We have to think that as we have a lot of rain-fed orchards here, a lot of pistachio is closed shell. So I would say it's more or less the half of our pistachio in the industry is closed shell, and we have to exploit the kernel. In this sense, in this regard, I have to talk about our Italian neighbors. They are experts on doing this. You would be amazed of traveling to Sicily and Bronte and see all the marvelous pastry and haute cuisine dishes that they do out of pistachio. I see a trend of the market going towards that. We find pistachio more and more in the dishes, in the kitchen, in the cuisine, and this is something to be exploited by the market. We are already doing it in Spain. We see more and more products derived from pistachio, and this is something interesting. On the other hand, I see also about demand, a big demand for organic product. Spain overall in rain-fed orchards or just with very few drip irrigation is actually quite keen to produce organic pistachio. It's quite easy for us to produce it under the EU conditions. and we see it in the market demand. This year, because of COVID, it was the first time that we have seen a decrease on organic product, and this is due to the fact that it is more expensive than the conventional one. But still, I would point it as a trend demand, the organic product. On this regard, I have to say, authorities at the European level, but also at the Spanish level, should put more attention on surveying that the organic conditions to be planting organic pistachio are really surveyed by the authorities in order to avoid any kind of misuse or cheating about the organic certifications. This has been already the case in some places in my country, and pistachio imported from other countries. This is a fight to win. And a lot of people we are really getting involved into that, and the authorities too. Thank you.
I thank you, Carlos. It was good to get your perspective as well.
Mia, I want to add something, if you let me, for Carlos. Carlos, I want to add that actually my comment was only for the world demand. I mean, world demand for snack is around 90%. For example, for Turkey, we have 50% for ingredient market, which is the chocolate industry, sweet industry, and others. And also Italy is one of our biggest markets for exports. They are using a lot of ingredients. But if you look at the total numbers, I mean, the snacking is like 90% in total. Of course, if you compare Spain and Turkey, we are also 50% ingredients. Thanks God, also to Italy is same. We hope that this trend will continue. I believe that it will continue. After seeing more, reasonable prices, if you compare with other tree nuts like almonds and walnuts.
Okay, thank you, Serkan. I was surprised when you said 90%. I understood wrong, because I know that actually Turkish.
I have to clarify as well, for everybody. I mean.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that was a great discussion. I want to thank our panelists, and moving on with our agenda, I will summarize our panel discussion with a few key takeaways. So the key takeaways are that continued positive consumer trends are being driven by increased healthy snacking and a shift towards a more plant-based protein diet. Strong, effective industry marketing efforts are focused on health and nutrition and are increasing consumer awareness and driving pistachio demand overall. We have a powerful nutrition message that continues to resonate more and more with consumers. And all of that messaging is backed by solid nutrition research. Pistachios are a complete plant-based protein and a convenient, healthy snack, which means that they contain the essential amino acids I mentioned earlier, and pretty exciting for our overall industry. Kernels have become more and more available, and this has created even more demand than we could have predicted, as our panelists mentioned. In fact, in the US, our year-to-date shipments are currently breaking the record set last year. And in fact, the last 5 years, the US has broken the kernel shipment record. So great news for kernels. And now more than ever, we are actively marketing kernels, both as a snack and as an ingredient. Also, you see it in new product innovation and introductions like seasoned kernels. So that's been really exciting to see. A worldwide supply of pistachios this upcoming crop year, taking into account crop year 2021 crop expectations and estimated carryover from this year, will be down, as I mentioned, 13% compared to last year. However, overall demand is growing, and as we heard from all the panelists, it's very exciting, and we're going to need that supply to meet current and projected demand. So all great news. We heard from the group that growing pistachios to reduce insect levels, and I mentioned that we're doing more work in the area of sustainability. We're focusing on soil health and caring for the land. We are not without our challenges, as discussed during this program, but you can clearly see the overall message is a positive one. We have a great product that is loved the world over, and we are united in our optimism about the future. And so with that, I will thank you for your support of the pistachio industry. At this point, we are going to move on to questions. And I would like to ask Mike to please get us started while I look them over.
Sure, Mia, happy to do that. So I'm going to start off with the first question here for the US panel. It says, given harvest timing and recent supply chain disruptions and the expectation that these will continue into the peak selling season, do you think the industry will have a degree of difficulty meeting demand into China given an early Chinese New Year shipping season? So I will start off answering that, and then Mia can add. What I would say is, yes, there are significant supply chain and shipping challenges. We are dealing with those. What I would also say is, fortunately, the industry has a sizable carryover, and that carryover can be shipped earlier in the season to arrive in time for Chinese New Year. However, that is only through careful coordination. And we need to work very, very closely with our Chinese partners to make sure that we coordinate that and have the product arrive on time. And I don't have a crystal ball, but I anticipate the shipping issues will certainly continue through the Chinese New Year period, as that is the peak holiday shipping season, and there'll be a lot of shipping capacity. So I would say we're preparing for the challenge as best we can. However, we're going to have to closely coordinate with our Chinese customers. Mia.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you taking the first one. Okay, I think we have a one for Iran, Beiruz. The question is, what type of marketing or advertising does the IPA do? Specifically, the question is, the IPA does not promote and advertise like the American Pistachio Board about the quality and benefits of pistachios. Would you mind addressing this question?
Sure, I would love to. You know, the breakdown of Iranian pistachio farmers is that we have mostly smaller farmers. By smaller farmers, I mean less than 20 hectares. We have farm owners that are half a hectare, 1 hectare, 2 hectares, different variety. But this is the biggest total number of hectares belong to these small farmers. And IPA is formed by the help of small and big farmers. And it really doesn't have the funds and means available to it to promote pistachios, Iranian pistachios around the world. Whereas in America, most of the farmers are big size farmers. And for example, when there was a California pistachio group, even that split up into 2 different groups. One was wonderful and one was the rest. So they each have their own money and banking and backing, to promote pistachios. Unfortunately, in Iran, it doesn't work like that. And IPA, we have a lot of small farmers which cannot, put money into the IPA. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beiruz. We have another question here. This is for Turkey, Serkan. Turkey had such a large crop, but prices remained so high. Why so much carryover, low domestic demand or less exports? Why Turkey remained firm on prices?
Thank you for the question. Actually, Turkey had maybe the record low prices this year if you compare previous years. And it was, Turkish prices were cheaper than US prices. It was higher than Iranian prices, which is for the first time, maybe the second time in the history. Normally, Turkish pistachios has 20 to 30% more than these origins every year, even more. But with this bumper crop, we have still a habit in Turkey, the people who stock pistachios as an investment. There are still such people which have money and they think that they can stock and then make money after 1-2 years by stocking them. This was the habit coming from the previous years because we always had lower crop and bigger demand in domestic, and this still continues. But this year, after this record crop, even they had these stocks, and the domestic consumption was around, let's say, maximum end of the season, 150,000 tons. And let's say the exports around 25 to 30,000 tons will end up. We still have a lot of carryover, but they are mostly with the traders and these kind of stockers in the market. But as I told you, still, Iran is exceptional this year. I think it never seen such low price in Iran, and it has increased already to the normal levels. Turkey was cheap this year, and we had a lot of demand even from China, especially for the in-shell Pistachios, and we have repeat orders because the products were loved by and tested really with positive answers. And I believe that in incoming years, if the total supply continues to be with excess of domestic consumption, this is for sure, we believe, we will see more reasonable prices. And then after, the worldwide, it's being tested more, we will see more demands incoming for Turkish pistachios with the consistent price throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Serkan. We have another question here. Perhaps, Mike, you can take this one. We have seen more pesticide residue failure issues on pistachio these days, specifically on the US pistachios. May I know if the pest issues are getting more serious, which needs extra spray to control and makes the residues excess, and how could this be resolved?
Thank you, Mia. Yeah, pesticide issues are a concern. We talked earlier about regulatory challenges that the industry has. Pesticide residues are a regulatory challenge. In certain markets, the levels are extraordinarily low and we believe not supported by science. So that's one of the issues. We believe they're artificially low. We're working to resolve that as best we can. But that will take some time. With regards to insect pressure, as you mentioned, Mia, the insect damage in the product this year was quite low, and we believe that's because of an integrated pest control strategy for our farmers. Pesticides is part of that. However, a bigger part of that is winter sanitation, biorational pest controls, puffers as they're called, and a variety of an integrated program, and then also just general awareness of the issue. So I would not say it's related to more spraying. I would say it's really related to regulations that are extraordinarily low. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that our industry is doing a great job at managing issues as they come up, which happened this year. So I commend our industry for doing that. We have a question now for Carlos. If you could quantify the organic demand into Europe, how many metric tons would you estimate it to be?
Thank you, Mia. That's a tricky question because by memory, I could say, if I remember well, that the total consumption of pistachios of the European Union was about 150,000 tons to 200,000 tons. Out of that, not even 5% of the pistachio demand is organic. My question is, this is because people don't want to buy more organic, or maybe because there are not more organic pistachios available, or the available one is expensive? As I said before, the difference between conventional and organic pistachio nowadays is around €3 the kilogram. Already our customers complain sometimes that organic pistachio is expensive. Some of them still find worth it to work with it and packing and selling in special stores. But what would happen if this price difference would decrease? If it was only €1 or €1.5 the kilogram, would the demand increase? My opinion is yes, the demand could increase. So nowadays, I'm sorry I cannot answer that question very well, I think it's a mixture of both. The demand of it, which is increasing because of what we said before. People want to eat healthy. People want to practice sports, and the animal protein is more and more difficult to produce or less demanded as well. And on the other hand is the price issue. If the price could decrease, I think the demand would increase in Europe. That's what I think.
I want to contribute something to Carlos. Sorry, Carlos, you are finished?
Yeah, I'm finished. Thank you.
I agree with Carlos, especially for the organic demand in Europe. We are also very close and working a lot of organic products also for walnuts. And we see that if the premium that they pay more than 10 to 15%, the demand is really getting really low. We have experienced in previous years. So this premium, which Carlos mentioned, if it is like 30, 35%, it really kills the demand. So with the availability of the product, I think, like other nuts, I think we can see more and more demand incoming for organic pistachios. I believe that in incoming years will be easier to find this supply all over the world and then deliver this product to these customers with really interesting pricing.
Thank you, Serkan and Carlos. Let's move on with another question. This question is general to the panel. Do consumers have preferences for certain origins of pistachios? Who would like to start with that one? Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah. We have been sending pistachios to India for the past 90 years. And we believe that their preference for our Ahmad Aqai, given competitive prices, we feel like, this Indian, as I mentioned before, we could send a lot more pistachios to India. And because they have been used to knowing and eating pistachios for a long time, and they prefer this, especially Iranian Ahmad Aqai. So I don't see why that the trend shouldn't take that much higher in the future. Thank you.
Yes, Firuz, I see that for Iran, year to date in the 7 months, that quite a lot of shipments to the Indian subcontinent, almost 20,000 metric tons, up 17% over last year.
Exactly. Before that, our biggest shipment to the Indian subcontinent throughout the year was 19,000 tons. This year, through the first 7 months, we have shipped 19,000 tons to the Indian subcontinent. So, and also, before the China market or Far East market was very price sensitive and eating favorable prices. But even in the Chinese market this year, we have been selling Akbari, which is a long variety with a higher price. So I think even in China, you have so many people, so many rich people in China, maybe they mentioned 10% of the population is very rich. So eventually the trend in China is going to go one for cheaper pistachio, one for more expensive pistachios. And I think this is a big market for the US, Iran, Turkey, Spain, all these countries that are up and coming to, export a lot of shipments to China and India. This is what I see the world's future to be in these two countries. Thank you.
Yes, Firuz, for the Far East, for China and Hong Kong, together, Iran and the US is close to almost 130,000 metric tons just for the first 7 months, which is up 68% over last year. Iran, you make up most of that. So, and even with the tariffs, we had good shipments for the US. So quite impressive in the Far East. I agree with you.
Yeah, I think they are talking about lifting the sanctions. I'm sorry, Mike. I think the Far East is talking about lifting the sanctions on the American pistachio. I believe that 1 year we shipped 150,000 tons together to the Far East. That was a record year, but I see it to go way beyond that, hopefully in the future. I'm sorry, Mike, take it over.
No, thank you. Mia, I was just going to say, consumers, what they want is consistent quality, and they want that year in, year out. And that's what we in California strive to do with everything we do, from our growing practices to our processing. And currently California is the majority of shipments, and we're going to work hard to continue to drive the consistent quality, and that'll drive demand in the future.
Yes, I completely agree, Mike. Thank you. All right, let's see now. Moving on, why don't we talk about quality? So, and this is a general question to the panelists. What can we expect quality-wise on, I guess, the current crop, it asks, but maybe also the next crop? Who would like to take that?
So I'll start off. So I think this all goes back to, first of all, it's very hard to predict. I'll start with that. However, this all goes back to what the group has been talking about with regards to good farming practices. So quality all starts with good farming practices in the field. And that's related to, as we mentioned, a lot of the pest control, and making sure we have good pest control. And that starts from the first day of the new crop year, making sure that that's done well throughout the whole year. So there's a good program. So we're hopeful that the pieces of the pest control have been in place. So that's one. The second is make sure we have enough harvest capacity. With harvest capacity, we can receive the crop quickly, get it processed quickly, get it safely into the silos. That'll maintain the quality as well. However, there are factors that are beyond our control. There's potentially late season heat, potentially issues with access to water and so forth. So there's a variety of factors that we can't predict. However, I would just say that we have done, and I'm sure the other growing regions as well, have done all they can to produce the highest quality product.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, I agree with.
Okay, Mia, I would like to answer next. For us, good quality starts by demand, because most markets expect low prices. With low prices, you cannot give high quality pistachios. We are seeing the trend now around the world that people are asking for quality pistachios. Now, when they ask for quality pistachios at the more favorable prices, it's very easy to furnish them with such goods. But as long as the demand is for lowest price possible, then you can't really compete with quality there. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, good point. Anybody else want to try that question? Go ahead, Carlos.
As Mike said, it's a bit early to say. It's difficult to predict. In Spain, a fact that affects quality quite often is the hail in the late summer. When we have hail rains of hail, it can affect and damage the fruit and affect the quality. What we can say nowadays is that the spring went time, the blooming went smoothly, and we didn't observe any issue. This is a known year in Spain, and we can expect a good quality of the product. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can continue, Mia. For Turkish crop, actually, for current crop, we had a bumper crop, and if you have a big crop, the size is getting smaller in general, and we have also lower kernel yields and more insect damage than average year. For the next year, for the new crop, we expect actually bigger sizes and also bigger yields for kernels as well. And also, when the trees are a little bit, tired and low production, we expect also less insect damage with the, care of the farms easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Serkan. Yes, and also to add that in the US, I think we're doing such an exceptional job, as Mike mentioned, on all of our farming practices, that not only did we have, the lowest insect level, I think in the last 14 years, but this year we also had record low closed shells. And with that percentage of closed shell being low, it makes it difficult to make good quality kernels. So I'll say if we continue doing a good job on farming practices, it might make it more challenging to make attractively priced kernels. So I think if I agree with Beruz, if we want good quality kernels, the market, is going to have to possibly see an increase in price to accommodate it if we're not going to get the closed shell that we're used to getting. Okay, let's see if I have another question here. It looks like we have one for maybe the whole panel. Carlos mentioned recommended irrigation pattern for Spain was like 1,500 to 2,000 cusimeters per hectare, which are the typical volumes applied in US, Iran, and Turkish plantations when they are irrigated. So the question is, what is the water need for each of our crops in each of our respective areas? Anybody want to take a shot at that one? Go ahead, Beruz.
Okay. Our water system is going through to drip irrigation. Now, some areas is above surface, some areas it's under the surface. And normally, in the hot summer days, if we can irrigate, let's say 7 days, 6 days, 8 days on average, we'll be fine. On other, when it's not so hot, we can go to 10 days, 12 to 14 days and irrigate in these cycles and have no problem. It all depends, whether the soil is soft or hard also, So when the soil is softer, you irrigate less, but at more times. When the soil is hard, you irrigate in less time, but more hours each time you irrigate it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Beruz. Yes, I think also just from the US, as Mike mentioned, water is of a great concern right now in California, especially because of the drought we're in. And I think some of the things I mentioned earlier, utilizing water more efficiently and effectively is the key to California producing a crop that is less reliant on water. But having said that, water, is important to producing a good quality crop, as Mike said. And certainly, some areas need, 6 acre feet, some need 8 acre feet, some less. So it depends on the growing region, where those orchards are, specifically in California, kind of also dictate the amount of water that needs to be put on an orchard. And I'm sorry, I meant 4 acre feet. So go ahead, Mike. Did you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it, Mia. There is variability for a number of factors. I would also say there continues to be a lot of study as to what is the optimal amount of water and also when to apply it. And I know our universities are continuing to do a lot of research on that.
Great. Anybody else want to add to that regarding water? Okay. So with that, I think we're going to stop with the questions, and seems like we're going to be out of time in a couple of minutes here. So at this point, I just want to say thank you for all those questions. I think they really helped to expand the conversation. So thank you for sending them in. And at this time, I would like to thank the panelists for their insightful contributions to this year's INC Pistachio Working Group. And I would like to also thank the audience for joining us. And we hope you found it informative and useful. And we hope to see all of you next year in person. And with that, I will hand it back over to Goretti to wrap up the session.
Thank you, Mia. And to all of you for sharing your expertise. And thank you again to Seton Pistachio of Terra Bella for sponsoring the session. Also, just to let you know that this session, like all the rest, will be available in the Netflix area of the conference website. Thank you again to everyone for joining us over these past few days. Please make sure that you stay connected to stage 1, as coming next is the announcement of our Innovation Award winner and the closing ceremony with INC Chairman Michael Waring and myself. Thank you and see you shortly.
We are thrilled to be a sponsor of this year's Global INC Online Conference and hope you enjoy this brief overview of our family company.